Okay, let's push into turn 2 here, and we'll probably get more than one turn per video from now on. I started things, well, before I go any further, those of you who are worried about my pipe situation, I found this one does come apart like a pot pipe would, and washed this out. So, different method of cleaning, but it works fine. I don't know why I didn't think it came apart, but I think I didn't feel any give at all when I tried it. Anyway, so that's resolved, and well, I didn't go out for a walk last night, and I found that it's next week that I'm going to have the dancing opportunity that I thought I did. I would have been awakened by loud music if it starts at like 8 in the morning. They do sound check at like 7, you know, and it's not far from where I am, so I would hear it. And there's many opportunities, big marathon thing, but it's not this week. I thought it was because they were throwing flyers up. Anyway, back to the game. I've already done everything. Well, most of the beginning. Rolled up my operations points again, threw them into place. Reinforcements, I threw them on the board. Nobody's spending for additional ones at this point. It would be very expensive for the Brits to generate more. They could generate them from here, I think. I think you're allowed 3 turns in advance to pump them up, but you have to pay per turn that you're speeding it up. So that's pretty extreme. I could bring the Royal Louis in. I probably could use those points for that, but I probably need to dig in certain locations. And I'm also going to likely want to extend my line out to here if I can. I don't want to make too weak a shell, but I really don't want something like this sticking out. So I want to cover some of the territory between these, but it looks like I'm going to have to hold 3 of these areas minimum. Because this doesn't stretch out here, so I'm going to have to go to here or here, and that's a lot of space to cover when I got to duck down here too. Now, of course, I can do landings over here this turn and let the French have this territory. I don't think I can hold it. And lots of French, showing a few up here. We have the initiative to roll at this point. I don't have to worry about the Council of War, that whole situation. Now, for initiative, you basically have replaced the dice. The game is too pretty to use. Those weren't even the dice that came with it. I just grabbed them quickly. But I'm using my AWE dice for this. It seems appropriate because of La Révolution Française. You have some modifiers to it. So the overall commander for the French for initiative is going to be Carteau here, who is not very good. So he gives a -1. The British, it's Mulgrave, who's sitting out here, and that gives no bonus. The English get +1 for previous turn, and then each player can secretly assign some points to modify this die roll. If initiative's really important, well, the French don't have a lot of points. They would really love initiative, but if they get initiative and then can't move many of their forces, well, they could throw themselves into a defensive position if they move the initiative. So it might be worth it for them. The English and Spanish, I feel like they need their points. See, I'm really worried about an attack on that supply line there. I'll tell you what. I'm going to spend 1 for the French to even it up. And make it 2. And I'll get myself +2. I'm worried about losing the foothold that I've built there. So the French get the initiative there. They're net +1 on the die roll. And we get to start with their turn. Okay, so I open things up by moving Victor with some grenadiers into play to grab this territory. But this is what's kind of neat. The reason I used Victor is he gives me a -2 to my die roll. So with a C unit, I only need a 1 through 5 to get in. I pay an ops point. I could pay another ops point to make it guaranteed, but why bother with that? I can, just keep trying, as it were, because it's a no man's land. I'll make it eventually. So two ops points would probably be overspending. Now I want to enter an enemy territory, though. Now, I want to send a force in there, and I may actually want to launch attacks against both of these if I can. Well, I can only send 5 points with each movement because of the size of the force, and I can't reinforce into the area because I don't control it without spending ops points. I'm gonna, well, during the battle I could. So the question there becomes, do I want to make a big move on this and try to cut these guys off, force them out, grab these victory points here, and put myself in a better position? It doesn't look like there's a lot of allied units there. So I think the answer is yes, I do. I can only send 5 points at a time, though, in there. Ooh. Yeah. That's risky. I don't know for sure what's there, but let's take a risk. Let's be bold. We have Victor. So he will take, I think, one of his units. He'll be in command. I'll spend the ops point. And we're trying to enter enemy territory. Let me make sure I have everything correct about this, because it's the first time we've done this. Enemy costs more. I can't go in. I don't have the points. Okay. Never mind. All right. So I guess I'm going to just continue defining my space, because I just don't have the points to go into enemy territory. I wouldn't have been able to get the attack on any of these. So what I'm probably going to do is try to expand further. And I can keep using Victor for the expansion, because, again, he's, in the... you can keep moving the same units, as it were. So I shift a force up to here and then move into here. I don't have any ability to build a redoubt with the few points that I have. I've got unless it's in a wooded area, and I don't have any wooded areas yet. That's these, I think. So I've got so many troops that I can garrison pretty safely all my stuff. This turn was the one turn where this section might get damaged. Do I need to move any of these? It's too risky at this point. The Allies could swing their forces into play and go take Soli. I got to make sure I hold that for the turn. In fact, it's tempting for the Allies to go for it. I'm not going to do it. But I think that's actually a danger in the game, is that the Allies could actually move, get a couple of moves into here, move all their forces here, and essentially make an attack on Soli. Discourage that. I'm going to spend my 2 points to build a redoubt here. I think that actually generates an attrition check on that unit, on one of the units in that stack, which I'll put here to try to remind me so that I allocate it to the right unit. Okay, and that's my points, because I had 2 points left. I ended up not doing anything further. So now all I can do is reposition units within my lines. Okay, so jumping ahead to the attrition, I had some pioneers here. They even say they are. other than just saying engineer symbol on them. So that does not take a check. I could actually build the readout somewhere else cheaply when I have those. I don't think I have any in the Western faction. I didn't recall seeing any. I've spread out my forces to kind of maximize stacking where I can. So for example, here I've got some 30 strength points. Here I've got 30, I think. And then back here it's 15 in each, and the rest back there. There's no way the Allies can bust through forces like that, especially where the redoubt is at this point, without overcommitting, getting themselves in a lot of trouble by trying to make the attack. They could get the forces in there to make the attack, but they would have to drain so many of their small units that they need to cover the areas. So I actually only have one attrition roll, which is here, and I wanted to point out that I moved a gendarme into place, which is going to reduce, I believe, my attrition check, even for movement attrition. Yeah. And the unit that made the attrition check is a C. I've got a good leader with me. So I've got a lot of things going for me there, right? Best leader in the area, -1. The unit is not big. You don't want to do things with big units. That'll cause attrition. So I think I'm at -2 on that. I need to roll a 6 to get attrition. And I do not. So that goes away. And I think we're pretty much done. I've still got some administrative stuff to take care of, which includes jumping down to, let's see, I've got all the rallying to take care of, and then I've got final attrition to apply, which might happen. And that's probably about it. And I should leave that attrition marker on that unit, because that unit, I'm always forgetting that. That unit has to deal with the attrition first. Actions that generate attrition, it would have been useful to put maybe in cost a little note marker that maybe dropped down so that you could see that. Otherwise, you get used to them pretty quickly, but otherwise it's a rules reference that probably didn't need to be made. There's nothing on here, no other chart that seems to indicate when you take the attrition. It would be very helpful on the activities itself to say which ones generate an attrition check. And then in the end of turn, the final attrition, there was something I wanted to mention and I forgot it. In the final attrition, the East has to roll, but the West takes 2 attrition automatically. You can see they have a generated attrition that's automatic each turn. I don't know what that 6 underlined is. Maybe meaning for both, each one. Oh, no, it's because they're combined at that point. They're considered one wing from then on, I think. If they're connected. So the point I brought up here, it's possible that was brought up in the playtesting. I remember Roger bringing up points like that. I'm really bad at noticing things like that when I'm playing opposed. My mind is on the game when I'm playing solo. My mind is on strategy and stuff like that more when I'm playing opposed, and I'm really kind of feel like I'm always sinking in a game when I'm playing it opposed, in the sense of trying to grasp what I'm doing, what I'm going on, what my trying to hit the goal, because I don't have that time to reflect in quiet and to speak to myself in the way that I do. So that's why I'm kind of useless in playtesting groups. The only way I'm useful is when I'm alone. And I unfortunately have far too many things to do rigorous playtesting on games that I'm not videoing. Okay, so anyway, that final attrition, one of them had to be allocated to the unit here that had the marker, and the other one I put back here because I've got a decent commander there, I guess. You end up seeing this in the game, from what I remember, which is a bunch of units collect up attrition during a turn, and they just are constantly being parked towards the back areas to rest. It's kind of cool and, appropriate. The units that have been fatigued, you pull more units in from combat or whatever, so that they have a chance to recuperate. I was a little worried I may have screwed up more than I should have, more than I thought at least, with the Allies. In terms of, I'm looking at what they're going to do for this turn, and they want to get over here. Now there's enough French over here that it's going to be kind of rough to control all this territory. I don't know if I can afford it. I feel like I have to give them access to the Petite Rod. I don't think I have a way around that with the troops that I have. So I'm going to be doing it navally. And then I get worried because there's an embark cost of 3 operations points for that. But that does not apply coming out of Toulon. So since most of my forces are connected through Toulon, and I probably will end up making a hookup up here, I don't have to worry too much about that. I'll be able to shift forces into there as the first part of movement, then embark, and then pay to do my landings. Grabbing the victory points early doesn't matter too much if I can't hold them. I don't think I'm going to be able to push the victory points up to the auto victory with any level of safety. I think trying to do so will put the Allied cause too much at risk, which means I may be giving this up, but I'm not going to push any further along here. In fact, I may be pulling back there. This kind of extension here. It's interesting. I'll tell you why it's interesting. One, I have this bastion. I can't think of the redoubt that I'm unable. That I'll lose if I don't take it. Now, granted, losing the forts is even worse, but it also gives me a little extension that I can threaten the French lines with. So maybe with a small commitment there, I can force the French to either take more losses than I'm going to take in trying to take some of that land. But the danger is this. This becomes, the weak spot in my position. So I'm going to have to entrench there too to hold this. And then this is just this spur that's kind of wasting my troops. That maybe makes it easier to attack me where it counts. Over here, well, this fort is worth victory points. I want to hold on to that. I want to make the French pay for those victory points, because in the long run, they're going to be getting a lot of the victory points pretty easily. These are the ones that I want to hold on to, obviously, and this is probably a gimme for a long time, but I don't want to make things easy on the French for the attack. All right, so let's try to figure out what I'm going to do with the Allies. One thing, although it didn't have an effect, I forgot to check for attack supply from the French headquarters for their supply source there. Chances are they didn't have the right to attack. They would have had to spend a bunch of ops to even get that. They have, a 1 in 6? No, they have to spend an ops point to have any chance of attacking at all. And the most you can spend is 5 for that chance. So I basically can't engage early in the game. The Carteau is unwilling to commit to any kind of offensive action. But I can grab the land that I did. Changed my mind as to what I'm going to do. Instead, I stretched out by land using Gravina, who gives a bonus to movement. And now I've got a perimeter that I've defined out. It maybe isn't all the way where I want it. I may end up pushing it out this space to give me a little fallback location here. I still have to decide where he is. I don't know why this is in here. I'll throw it out, I don't know. I'm doing so much with the Allies. They have so many points in these early couple turns that there are a lot of zero attrition markers. Basically, I've got, a lot of things where I'm expanding into one space and then entrenching with another unit, and there's just a lot of that going on. You won't see that so much later, so don't worry too much about those blank counters, and I've actually had to go to fired counters for that. That's not a long-term problem in the game. I may be spread out too much with the Allies. Defending up to here, though, isn't taking that many more troops than it would take to kind of block this section off. And I can always, if I lose force here, I can always withdraw back here. But the thing is, I could have done operations here for a little while with very few troops. But they would have gotten very tired very quickly if they start digging in or anything. So by running it up here, I'm forcing the French, hey, you want to expand your hold around Toulon? You're going to have to attack. The problem with it, of course, is places like this are going to be too weakly defended, and they are vital. The defense lines right in here are really vital to the holding Toulon. And if the French decide to make an attack on one of them, if they're capable of it, remember, they have to get a successful combat supply roll to make an attack at all. And that costs a good deal of activation points to have a good chance at doing that. But if they are successful in taking one of those, I could be in some very, very deep trouble in that case. And that, especially this one is really open to attack right now. But I feel like I have to define out that perimeter. So I think the French may make this their goal next turn. And if they can take that, I'm in a lot of trouble with the Allies. But if they can't take it, I'm not in too much trouble. So, because of that, I'm going to put a general down there. He's not going to help me with my recovery. And I'm going to look to see, do I have any troops I can spare over to there? I might be able to... I think I can shift these into there. It'll strengthen the... Some of it's just appearance. This unit, it's just making it look like it's stronger. Now I could switch that with something that actually is stronger. So I could shift that in here and put another unit. And now I'm kind of taking advantage of, I'll be getting that B leader for rally, which I think matters, yeah. So I might be actually getting my troops recovered there. I really don't want to lose that space. I don't want to lose this one either. But this one's a lot harder for the French to get to because they haven't slammed up against it yet. Is there anything else that I could throw in there safely? I don't think so. I could pull this out. That might be useful. I'm giving up a space by doing that, but I can retake it by simple movement, and that space isn't doing me any good. I could actually pull out of this space as well, because I'm not getting any victory points from that. I want to hold on to the victory point spaces that I have. But anyway, I'll leave it as is for now because I don't know how... This guy isn't terribly useful unless I throw him into a fort. And I think most of my forts that are exposed actually have a static gun command, unit in them. So that's... I think I can only use one per fort. I'm not sure. Anyway, That'll give me a little bit more strength towards that. And I think that's about it. The only negative is I haven't grabbed these victory points yet. But again, I don't think I'm going to get the automatic victory with this very defensive type of stance. Therefore, it's not worth grabbing the victory points terribly much. I'm taking advantage of wooded areas to build redoubts, get a little cheaper to build them. I'm probably going to be improving those redoubts, building more of them where I can. Just try to fortify as much as possible to make it difficult for the French to advance into the territory. I think the thing is, the Toulon situation really is actually like most sieges. Once an army decides to lay a siege, it's pretty hopeless. There's nothing that's going to come and relieve this. And therefore, eventually, France's manpower is going to take it. The question then just becomes, hey, how long can you hold out? Because I think there's an automatic decision to withdraw by the Allies coming from here. And at the end of the 2 turns, this is kind of what we have. The attrition losses are beginning to be telling on the Allied forces. They didn't recover too much. They've been really, doing a lot of field works and a lot of movement around to position themselves here. And the cost is fairly clear. Taking more expensive actions like improving redoubts should help that, because I'll be making less attrition rolls. Neither of the automatic attrition rolls took place, and the Toulonnais don't affect any. I seem to remember there was a requirement for a garrison here. I'm keeping it at a minimum, and it may be that I'm kind of cheating with that. I better look that up, because I may have to redistribute some of the forces I piled into here, if that's the case. Okay, starting turn 3, there's a big drop-off on the Allied operations points available. This is why we had to get our lines set now, more or less. We have 7 for the Brits, 10 for the Spanish after the rolls. The French have 6 on each, and now the question is, well, what kind of commitment do I want to make towards initiative? The initiative rolls at even right now. The British have the better leader. The French had initiative last turn. There's no other modifiers in play. I don't know why I was pointing at that, but there's no other modifiers at play, so it could go either way. The real question is, do the Brits want to throw, or do the Allies want to throw a point or 2 in, try to get themselves the edge on that so that they can entrench more before the French might be able to launch an attack. The French are kind of split. The eastern side, that's going to have to expand no matter what, so that's not a big deal. Nobody's too concerned about that. But the western, well, if I spend, say, 5 of those points to guarantee myself attack effectiveness, well, not guarantee, but to give myself a chance of being able to attack, that leaves me with only 1 point to launch the actual attack. That's not enough to do it. So the best they're going to be able to manage here is, if they're going into an enemy area to attack, they need to use 3, which means they could give themselves a 50-50 chance of the attack. I'm not terribly concerned about any of the locations they might attack, although any of them would kind of suck. So I think I'm going to throw 1 point in. I got too many Spaniards here. Give me a +1 on the net. So if I can dig in a little bit more, it's better. And I get it. And this should be in Toulon. And now I'll pretty much spend my effort on this turn improving my defenses, especially in the area where they most matter. But I also have to kind of worry about out there. I might be trying to make an expansion into this space and dig in here as well. That gives me a fallback space, which is a fine thing. Even though this is going to be less defensible than this is. Now it's green, which I don't know if that's clear or wooded. I think anything green is wooded. It's kind of hard to tell from the delineations here, but it looks to me like it's the color differentiation that's important rather than anything else. And there are a couple of little woods in there, so not sure. I assume this is not wooded. I'm not sure what the different appearances are supposed to absolutely mean, but you can make a call on them if you need to. And you can see there's far fewer of these attrition markers. I get to remove them now. It's the end of the turn, but just the lack of points available. Oops. To use means that I can't, be fortifying everywhere and everything. Plus the fact that I'm starting to do some improved fortification. Now I'm running into a problem here that I noticed in the rolls. I'm out of readout markers. Those are design limit, but it's worse than simply that. I thought if I improve these, I'll be able to rebuild readouts somewhere else. Nah. So I've got some less defended areas and maybe some areas that I don't particularly need to defend that heavily up here that I'm not sure I would have chosen to dig in at. I also probably wouldn't have chosen the digging in here. This I would have probably wanted to save and maybe use my readouts a little closer. And in particular, what's bad about the situation I've got is there's key places like this location that I really am going to want to read out in someday, and I can't do it anymore. Locations near Toulon itself, in case my first line falls when I'm so spread out, now I don't have a chance to dig in deeper. And that's going to be a serious problem for me, I think, as the game develops. Live and learn, right? So that's going to push us over to the French side of the turn. And they probably don't have enough points to press the attack at this time, but maybe they'll take a shot at it. Crap, my camera didn't charge. Alright, and I'm going to need it here. Well, the French spent for 3 points for an attempt to get combat supply, and they got it here. And the way I note that is that I put an out of combat supply marker here. I've been ignoring them because they just haven't mattered otherwise. But I'm going to have the opportunity to launch an attack this turn, and we're going to get to see how that works. Over here, I've got the French expanding out down to here. And they built redoubts in both spaces that'll protect their supply line to launch attacks from. I'm probably going to try to work my way around to hit over in here because I know the English are out of redoubts. Damn it, man. No reason to face where they're tough. And that'll, collapse their whole line, basically. They won't be able to hold their redoubts. It doesn't matter whether I destroy them or they abandon them or anything. They can't rebuild them anywhere again. I find that a little disturbing. I feel like, why wouldn't I be able to dig in again? Either I should be allowed to do it early in the game and no other time, or I should be able to convince my troops to entrench again. It's either, I don't know. I do not understand the point behind those kinds of restrictions, which is why I don't even really consider them. Okay, so what we have is Victor, and we're sending him with 3 units. This is important. I had to choose which place to attack. I would have loved to attack here, but this place only holds 5 strength points, which means if I spend my 3 operations... Well, it has a 5 strength point value in it, which means it can hold 15. But for 3 operations, I only get 5 strength points going in there. And there's a good chance that I can't face what I'm looking at there. But this space, I can send 15 into all at once. And there's only a couple of Spaniards that are damaged there. This is almost as good. It's bordering Toulon. It probably is, you know, game over if I let it fall. The people we were playing against were a lot more confident on the defense and grasping the game than I am, it seems. And what I've got is 3 French units, a couple of generals. I don't think I need 2 generals, actually, because I'm only going to be able to coordinate 1 force. So I'm going to pull him out. I'm going to send Victor in because he's useful, but I'll leave Brule or Brule. There. And what's kind of cool about the French units is they have these 5-point units. They're sort of your optimal units, not just because 3 of them adds to 15, but because 5 is the most strength that you can use in a combat. Okay, so now what happens? Well, I blow my points. I'm sending a leader A in with this force, and I'm trying to advance, and I make a quality check for every unit this time. So that's going to be -2 with A's. I'm guaranteed to go in. I don't have to spend any more. Pro P per unit entering enemy. Yeah. So I'm able to get in guaranteed there. I don't think I get an attrition check for that because it's not an NML. I have to check that to be certain. And then we'll go to setting up the battle and I'll talk about that. Upon the French moving into this area, I put the battle marker there after, you know, but the Spaniards decided they are inside here. Now I got a problem. This is, oh, I thought that was, this looks like artillery of some sort. I don't know. It looks like it's our horse artillery, so I think it's going to have an effect. Anyway, from what I can see, the defender is entirely in here. Because there's an optional rule that says that these units can be forced to be attacked as a combined force, I'm assuming that the basic game says no, that's not how it happens, that they're spread out like a normal battle, like the field battle would be. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send one against here, one against here. I'm going to try to send a second one against the infantry because I assume the artillery will be weak. And I'm going to try to coordinate with Victor. So I have to roll against his leader effectiveness rating for coordination. Now this is all over on this table, but they're facing every which way on there. So let's look over here. So I need to roll 1 die, and I don't want a 6. Okay, so I can do what I wanted to do. All right, let's go from there to the next step. I don't think I have any artillery anywhere near here. I don't know, I probably have a gun here. Alright, how do I get that artillery into this? Artillery in adjacent areas may be assigned to sub-battles as per the artillery rules. Okay, so we'll do that. I don't think I have anywhere else. This is... I probably have more than one artillery here. Because this is an artillery. But I bet you I have, yep, I have some activated guns there too. Okay. So these guys are off-board firing into the field. Now how do they get to fire is the question. 17.23. I think they have to make a roll for ammunition. find where that is. An ammunition roll is required in this instance. Where is the ammunition roll? Earlier. Allied guns automatically have ammunition provided they're in supply. Well, I am. ASGs always have ammunition. And I think that means I can fire in each round. That's all that it means. So I'm going to qualify artillery in both battles. Now, where are we? What are we at next? I did my coordination. Okay, and now we set up the actual fights. And let's take a look here. I've got 14 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe the artillery adds its thing. Adds its quality and doesn't just throw its strength in. It adds its strength points, not its combat effectiveness. Okay, so I'm not as big as I thought. So I've got 3, 4 to that 14. 14 divided by 4 sounds like 3 to 1 to me. And we roll 2 dice. Any modifiers here? Fortress gives column shifts. See 13.1, no chart for that, damn it. So we flip through the rules again. And again, you know, this becomes easy once you're there. The readout gives me 2 column shifts in defense. Yeah. Fortifying is impressive. So that gets me down to 1 to 1. And I roll an 8, which means nothing happens. Alright, let's resolve this next one here. And here, we have a strength of 0, which means I don't think we're even on the line. Which means this should have all been resolved as 1, huh? I don't know. Shit. I'll be back. That's covered here. This has an effective strength of 0. Over way down here. Units with a 0 strength point. These don't... So if all the defenders were 0, they'd have to retreat. But as it is, just this one's just not in the combat. He's not allowed in the combat because he's too weak. So our total was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 21, which was 4 to 1 with 2 shifts against. We each take 1 hit. The French inflict a temporary loss, and I think they just won the battle. Because they just weaken. These losses can't be taken on the artillery that's in the background. The Spaniards, because of the artillery support, nope, it had to be artillery in the battle, only inflict a temporary loss. Okay. So now 21 to whatever, 3, because the artillery wouldn't have been in here, I think would have been an overrun, but the fortification prevented that. So now we've got a retreat, and this, the game is over, I think. I screwed up in spreading out too thin, and the particular place that I chose was particularly weak. We'll see, but I can cross this little road spot into Toulon, and that's a victory condition, isn't it? Yeah. So, I pretty much have to defend Toulon. Oops! I was hoping to show the game in some detail, but instead I just showed my incompetence. Okay, so we go to retreats. A retreating defender enter non-enemy occupied area other than that from which the attacking units... okay. So we're retreating because round 2, somewhere, I don't know, somewhere in here, it tells you that if you have no strength, you have to retreat. 0 at the start of combat or the start of round 2. They have to retreat prior to the combat, and the combat is complete. So, I'm allowed to retreat into somewhere. This shit goes back where it was. I'll retreat to Toulon, because I think it's all over here. And this is gone, but the redoubt is still present. I can't simply, I have to spend an effort to destroy the redoubt. Son of a bitch. Oh well, we wanted to see an interesting game, and instead we saw my incompetence. That's not too uncommon, I guess. But the game can end really early. Wait, it's not over yet. Okay. So, what about other results of the battle here? Well, if we had losses suffering in retreat, so the loss differential gets moved somewhere. The attacker's cavalry held in reserve. There aren't any. I should have brought some in with me. I had some 0 strength cav. 0 strength cav would be able to do damage, I think, still. Who suffered the most losses, temporary plus permanent? Well, we each took 1. It's even. And now we see if somebody won, and they didn't. If that matters for anything. Can't find these rules either. There we go. Combat victory. At the conclusion of the combat, this... Okay. So this was not a victory because we didn't cause more casualties, even though we took the space. And it's certainly not a significant battle because nobody took any permanent losses. You can cancel out the last significant defeat by getting a victory. Even if it's not a significant victory. There's no victory points that are going to be handed for this, even though this is vital to the game, essentially. Nothing terrible happened. I think there's a casualty check, though. On a roll of 5. No! And now I check to see what happened. 4. Serious wound returned to the game in 1d6 turns. Yeah. Well, Victor got hurt. That'll help a little bit, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. And that's our only battle. We've spent all our ops points. And my battery is almost dead. All is not completely lost yet, obviously. For one thing, I can launch a counterattack here. I know the size of the French force. It's pretty big, you know. I mean, the Allies have, like, no troops, and I'm trying to get my battery to charge while I'm talking, or at least not to drain completely. And I can't seem to get that to happen. So... we probably can't talk for very long. Okay, and I'm on the damn tether anyway. There could be a counterattack against this position. For the most part, I'm in a lot of trouble if I allow the French to hold this position, and I can't cut them. And it looks easier to cut them here than to take this out. Which would at least knock them out of supply. They'd have to reestablish it. That might be difficult. They don't have many units here. However, there aren't a lot of Allied units, which means I have to give up a lot of my perimeter if I'm gonna be making that attack. And, you know, what I pull off here is stuff that I kind of have to commit down here, so I could weaken these forces, but I don't think I can give them up entirely. Certainly I could give this up. This is one of the less important spaces. I really need this whole line, though. It would be cheaper to hold this, I guess. Which kind of leads to, hey, giving up, you know, the stuff in the east completely. Which is going to be problematic, but I've got just way too much of my territory under under Allied control right now, which is a real problem. The other problem, though, is I've got all my troops are tiny little things, which means, you know, I don't have any units that can slam into a 5-point French unit on their own. Except maybe the Royal Louis. And that's going to make life really, really tough. Now, if I don't get this, Toulon is a level 3 fortress with infinite capacity to hold things. So it's pretty damn hard to take on its own. With the infinite capacity, I don't know if there's any limit to what the French can pile into it, though. So once they're adjacent to it, they may be able to just throw all their troops into it, just leaving a supply line, which probably will overwhelm any Allied force. Well, that was interesting. I was talking and not recording. So I had a redoubt over here in La Valette. And that makes no sense because I just saw over here on the chart that towns provide a regular redoubt value there. Not just for this, but also for combat, I think, I hope. Yeah, that's not listed anywhere. A town gives a 1-column shift to the left. Fortresses give column shifts. Yeah, well, the redoubt gives more than the town does, so the hell with it, I'm building it. Okay, well, alright, that's it, because I can't charge my camera while I'm talking. So in this turn, 15 through 21 September, we got Bonaparte and his batteries due to come in. I'm not in the locations that they're due to arrive in. I believe I can bring them in other locations, but maybe only if I control them, which would put me out here at H, which can bomb the Petite Rod. How much value is there to that? Okay, so I've got two issues that I could take. I could delay them each for a turn, or one of them, or whatever, and get points for that. If I bring them in, I've got to pay. Somewhere you got to pay 2 points per out of West or Napoleon himself. Now, Napoleon has a fixed 2 points. However many operations points he generates, which grows over time, is simply a fixed amount. You don't roll the dice to modify that. So I could bring some of them in. The advantage to not bringing them in is I can collect ops points. The advantage to bringing them in is I can start collecting artillery rounds. I'm not going to particularly want to be bombarding at this point. From what I remember of the game, trying to do the ship bombardment early doesn't make a lot of sense. That's ship to shore, which I would be having to deal with. But instead I'd be firing here at the Petite Rod. I'd have maybe at most 2 artillery strength points that I could fire, which means I only hit on a 4. I want to make sure that I want to wait until I, have a significant amount of artillery firing so that I can do a lot of damage all at once. The problem is a significant amount of artillery means that I'm blowing a lot of ammo. Even if I'm not using my stockpiled ammo, I'm blowing my opportunity to gain stockpiled ammo, which could be somewhat of a problem. I think stockpiled ammo is the thing that closes out at 19 rather than ops points. Okay. So there is some reason to bring it in But on the other hand, I may really need my ops points. I don't have all that many. That's the East. The West has only 11. The East can't really do much. I don't have many troops. I could increase my redoubt. That probably is the biggest thing. I can't spend those troops for anything else because we're not consolidated yet. So, is 11 enough for what I'm planning on doing? Well, probably. Because what I really need to do is go into Toulon. Now, for the Allies, they had an option too, and I rolled for the first time on, say, like the Neapolitan and Sardinian numbers. Okay. Hoping to get some, and I got 1 point for the Neapolitans, which I chose to bring in, and I brought it right into Toulon instead of using it as a landing force. Now, if I left it out as a landing force, it would be cheaper to land than if I have to re-embark it, but I really need the extra forces, and I got myself one big kind of lousy unit in there. It should help. I also noted I forgot to put the permanent loss on the Royal Louis. Trying to look at some kind of I see no possibility of me retaking a space against the French. It's funny, when I was playing this as the French, I was terrified of the Allies because they had so many pieces. I didn't realize they were all crap. They really, at least at this point, there's almost nothing of any size. So, okay, maybe they have some decent quality. Maybe, they can defend redoubts and such not. But they really don't have the capacity to knock me out of places once I've taken them as the French. So I think the Allies are going to be having to kind of say, yeah, we're stuck letting you have a shot at Toulon. And I think the answer to that is I'm going to have to abandon much of this eastern section, which I hate doing. I really hate doing it, but I just do not see another way around it. And of course that opens up a threat up here to the Grand Tour. But that's where I see this turn kind of flowing at this point. The French may want initiative, and thus the Allies may want to try to prevent it. So I'm trying to come up with a decision on what kind of bid to make here. The English and the Allies actually don't really need too many of their points, although they might want to improve their fortifications here. No, that's not there. Yeah. These are already improving. I'm not sure I see much point to improving these guys. So yeah, I think we're going to see a big fallback of Allied forces, giving up the terrain that I paid for and trying to defend Toulon from it. All right then. Allies decided, and I don't know if this is a reasonable decision or not, to spend about 9 points on their bid, and the French secretly. What was my decision there? It was smaller than that. I think it was 4 points from the eastern side, because I can use all the others to position here. Now I can launch everything from this space into here basically, which is 45 strength points in one blow. That's amazing, but I probably want to keep something behind just so that I can move into it for free, and if need be, launch another attack. And that'll all happen for 3 points. So that's kind of scary. Anyway, we're saying 9-4. That's a +5 on the English die roll. It could end up a tie, in which case the English keep it, I guess. Actually, they've got another +1 for that. They got a +1 for leadership. They automatically get initiative. Bonaparte is on the board. I kept the batteries off board, and we should be seeing the big fight. Except, here's the thing. If the Allies pull too much of their troop back to Toulon, then maybe the French decide, okay, screw that, man. Let's, you know, try to make our way through here. So we'll see what the Allies do. Screw it. I got a big force. I got a couple of leaders. I got a pretty good chance of getting in there. I can use the A leader to coordinate all 30 strength points, essentially, that I'm sending in. It leaves me 2 more points to play with. I don't know what I can do 2 points with. I could, of course, just save them and use them for recovery purposes. I'm not going to be able to improve any of my redoubts with them. Now, these other redoubts, I really don't like that I've screwed myself over and can't use these again. I just don't think that makes a hell of a lot of sense. That, you know, I mean, what did I use up? Did I use up my axes? Are they too dull now? I really don't know what that's supposed to mean. But either way, I think we're going to try to A, maintain most of that perimeter, and B, launch an attack on this space. It leaves a lot of spaces weak, but hey, maybe the French don't get their attack capability this turn, and they sure the hell, if I beat this, they're not going to get into Toulon this turn. And if I don't beat it, I'm going to have a lot of troops in Toulon this turn. Yes, they'll be weakened, but they're not going to get Toulon. With any, well, maybe if they commit everything, you know, who knows? We'll see. But yeah, we're going to make a massive attempt to drive them back from the walls and retake our redoubt here. And then we can, you know, improve it. Yeah, with 2 points left, I can actually not improve that. It cost me 3 points to improve a redoubt. I'm short by a point because it's going to cost me to attack 6 points out of this 8 to launch my attack. And I don't have anywhere else I'm allowed to build a redoubt. I can't build it here, for example, which I would love to do because I got a couple of spares, but it's not going to happen. All right, so here's the starting attack situation. The French set up like this. I see there's a little pinky there. I know what the French essentially have, so I'm sending my best unit, the Royal Louis. They're worth 4 plus 3 is 7 points. I'm sending them in against that. Now, they've got a chance of defecting, but it's low. I'm going to send the other 2 best units I have, these 2 3-3 units, which are bigger, with leaders so that I can coordinate. Okay. From there, what happens? I have to check my coordination die rolls. And we'll check with our Spaniard first, who has a coordination rating of A, or a level of A, and he fails. Well, that sucks. Now I check for the Brit, who has a B, and all he can send is 2 of his own nationality, which is essentially a failure because I'm sending a Spaniard in here and I don't have any English to throw in. However, yeah, I think that means I can't even use the artillery coordination here. For artillery, I'm able to toss some in here. I have 1 point coming from here, and oh shit, I took my artillery out of here? Yeah, I want that in there. 1 coming in from there. Okay, so I have 2 extra artillery fires. I'm going to throw them into these to bring them up to 7s. We make a check on the Royal Louis. Yeah, I'm probably not going to take this face. 10, 11, or 12, he switches sides. Oops. Okay, what just happened? Flip the unit to the alternative side to show that they're Republican, and they're not changing back. They can participate in the current combat round as Republicans. Now, I think what that means is I've got to deal with them here. I'm supposed to do this immediately before the resolution of the combat. immediately prior to resolve, maybe before I allocate stuff. Okay, well, now I've got to make new allocations, including this force as well. Crap. Here's what I end up with. I send some decent Spaniards here and the Garde Nationale here. This is not going to go well, though. All right, now we look back at our order. I think, yeah, we just do the sub-battles. Okay. Now, I've got 2 artillery coming in helping these battles. So this is 6, 7 to 7. That's even. There's no modifiers. I don't believe the woods does anything for me. I hope not. We got column shifts listed here. 1-to-1 is not a good table, as you might expect. 3. The attacker doesn't take anything. The defender takes 1 and a retreat. That's going to be a temporary loss. And we can look at the loss differential. I don't know which way to use this. It is currently 1 loss in the 1 French loss is what I'm putting it at. Okay, and we do this next one, which is also 7 to 7. It's going to be 1-to-1. The others are not going to be 1-to-1s. I get a 10, which is probably bad. I take 2 hits. They take 1. Okay. So my 2 hits are going to be 1 permanent and 1 temporary. And they're just going to take a temporary. And that resets the loss differential at 0. Here I'm at 5 versus 6. And that's 1 to 1.5, I would guess. 6. We each take a hit. That's going to be a temporary for each of us. So they already had a temporary. They just took their second temporary. Now what's hard is I have to remember these orderings. I think this is how it works. Jesus, I don't remember. I think it's per unit, but I'm not positive now. Let me go, I'll come back. Looks like it's per subunit. Okay, here it's 5 versus 7, which is again 1 to 1.5. We get a 10. That's going to be the attacker takes 1 in a retreat. So this is going to go down. This is not a real retreat. Now, what's kind of a pain in the ass with this game is you can't take into account just you have to take into account just casualties for the battle. Now, this loss differential helps, but it may not help to determining how many permanent losses were created, etc. Okay, now we're going to the second round of combat, and we've got to deal with Spanish retreat possibility, which is 32.2. And I think there's a table. I know there's a table that largely handles it. Is there a British unit in the force overall? Yes, there is. It's not in the sub-force, so we need to roll an 11 for the Spaniards to leave the battle. And boy, that would suck, wouldn't it? Oh, close. Ouch. Okay. So the Spaniards stick around. Units can elect to retreat. The Royal Louis defecting really hurt us. We are unlikely to dislodge the French here. But if we get a big R on the combat table, and there are some hiding in here, that's not in our favor. There's one hiding in there. Oh, I got to do leader casualties, don't I, for this round? If I can find them. A leader, I got leaders here somewhere. Leader casualties at the conclusion of any combat in an area. Yeah, I think that's the whole combat. Okay. Although I seem to remember we were playing it every round when I was doing it in the group. So this doesn't look terribly good right now, but I get to redo the coordinations. On the other hand, unengaged units have an attempt to move in within stacking limits, requiring a quality check, which means the French could bring all this in. Because they're adjacent here. This line is not a divisor. I don't think I can fight. I think I gotta go. So, I think we're retreating. There's no cav for the French, so the retreat is acceptable. It isn't going to cause any additional losses. We're going to have to see who won the battle, which is somewhere here. The side which occupies the attacked area, that'll be the French, and suffers the least losses, has won the victory. Well, that is going to be the French. They won a victory. But neither side lost more than one permanent loss. So, by ending it at this point and preventing it from being a significant victory, which would be a pain in the ass here. So, retreat we do. Now, when you retreat, I think I forgot something here. I think there's an attrition to that I wasn't paying attention to. A retreat into an NML gives you an attrition check. Okay, we're not doing that. Okay, so we're going to fall back into Toulon, and the French have their opportunity to try to take it. I've got a big allied force there, and the French will be able to peek. All these are face up. The French will be able to peek at the units in Toulon. They're always aware of that because they have spies in the city, essentially. And that ends the English side of the turn. It may well be over at the end of this. We're not positive, but if I could get a big stack of units in here, I can probably destroy most of those. A couple problems with what I've just resolved. One is, I think I found some Spanish artillery like this unit that didn't get thrown into the fight. Shit. And there was another one in the actual attacking force, I think. Either that or in Toulon, which didn't get thrown into the fight. So there were a couple strength points that weren't there. That could have had an effect. Another thing was I had a force somewhere back here that had 2 temporary losses on it. I think they came from the prior battle. If you take your losses down to 0 in a battle, you're gone. So this unit is actually destroyed. That's not worth any victory points or anything, but yeah. Always provides me in the playings that I've had of it. Limited, of course, but you know, this is only my second, but with really tough choices. So now with the French, whether I want to go into Toulon or not, I have to succeed in a lot of sub-battles, all of which are against very fortified terrain. What is it? A 3-column shift, right? No. Yeah, 3-column shift? No, that's the level 2 forts. These get the 3-column shift and I can't go in. I can't go in at all. Because there's some artillery there, right? There's. Let me make sure that there's at least 6 strength points, 2 of which are infantry and 2 are artillery, but I think that's the case. I can't even enter. Well, I didn't realize that, which makes the decision to attack here all the more appropriate. Given that, I think I have to launch my attacks to try to push my way around, I suppose. There's no way I'm going to get a main assault on Toulon. I cheated a unit into Toulon to make sure that it can't happen, because it would have been very easy had I realized that wrong. The French are going to want, the French are aware that the force includes 2 artillery because they have the free spying in Toulon no matter what. But they are interested in spying because they want to see where the weaknesses are here. They're going to improve the redoubt here. Move the engineers into place for that. Let's see how our spying works. Each side can spend ops points. I got a couple of Spanish ops points. I spent them for something, I think. Or I intended to, but I guess I got them kicking around. And this can be made after the roll, whoever has the advantage on it. So, it is unlikely that I will get a successful spying attempt, because I don't know why -1 and 0 are failures, but 1 through 3 are success. I don't know. I guess to give the defender an opportunity to modify. So I don't really want to spend any ops on it, but the Spaniards will spend their 2 to prevent it. So they have a 2-point modifier. I don't think it can succeed. That's a 5 or a negative. It's going to be a failure either way. Okay. Because I would have liked to know, what kind of forces are here. Not knowing what's here, this could be kind of dangerous to hit, whereas this is empty and I can hit this pretty easily. Oh, and it's got a bigger number. It's got a 10. So does this. And I could also hit, say, this, and thus isolate this fortress and force it to fight its way out. That's probably where I'm going to kind of aim for. I only have 10 points available between Bonaparte and the Western forces at this point. 6 of that can get me into the area. Maybe I want to rip up the redoubt, make that a less valuable area for the Allies to try to take back. I'm not sure. Okay, so what I've decided is to launch attacks on here and here. I didn't get in with as much as I wanted to here. I've only got 1 unit. I took 2 shots at getting in there. I only got 1 unit out of like 4 rolls using Brule. I've kept my leaders in the back. They're going to try to reinforce, because my numerical situation, well, here I actually could use a leader. I could fling Bonaparte in there. Let me throw this leader in instead, in order to do the coordination side of things. And if I end up taking both of these, it cuts this off. I would have liked to have hit 3 spaces, actually. If I cut this one too, it would cut off all the seaward transport for the Allies, which would mean these forces back here would have to do something, possibly a landing from elsewhere to here, in order to be in supply. Well, they'd be out of supply, perhaps. They'd get to make a roll to see if they can make their supply line, I think. But without an occupied beach, I'm not sure that they can even do that. They may need forces there, and they won't have that, so they'll suffer an additional attrition factor or problem based on that, which would be neat. And I'd also subvert that line. As it is, taking these 2, I don't really subvert this line here, which is kind of scary, except that line is disconnected from Toulon, which means it may be difficult for the Allies to reinforce that effectively. They're going to have to, send ships out with troops to that, which is what they're going to have to do eventually with holding this area, if that's what they aim to do. All right. I'll do the attacks off camera, largely because this video has gone long enough. I need to come back and report on it. This one, the Spanish artillery that was here, had no strength at all, so the French took the territory without a fight. The Spaniards get to withdraw. There's no cav to hunt them down. This one's more interesting. English have 2 units in an improved redoubt. I don't have to attack that. I can sit there and wait for reinforcements. And that becomes an interesting question, because if the Allies leave this one, this improved redoubt, they're giving up their line. So I'm going to take another shot at, I'm going to take the shot at reinforcing into there and hope that I can win it on one attack with enough forces, because I can bring in 10 more troops even though there's no actual battle going on there. That's kind of cool. So they didn't all make it. Now I have no artillery on either side anywhere near here. There's a possibility of Allied artillery here. But I'm going to launch the attack, and there is indeed an Allied artillery, which will get to throw its strength into one of the attacks. Oops. The Allies have these two units, neither of which is terribly good. I don't know where I'm going to throw it. The French have a 0 strength unit that they don't want to use, but our other units are pretty decent. And, well, we're risking, we don't have to send our commander in, actually. We don't want to, because he risks getting killed if he's in there, and he's not going to be coordinating any attacks. So that seems kind of foolish, although it's a low chance of him getting wounded. So now we reveal. I think we reveal before the Allies throw their artillery in. I'm not sure when you reveal. You may reveal before the battles, before the decisions are all made. I'll be back. I find it, and I can't be bothered to keep looking. So anyway, I think it's revealed beforehand. So this is going to be 6 strength points against 3, and this is going to be 8 against 3. Well, 6 against 3 gives me the most opportunity, so I'm going to drop this to 6 against 4, which means it's just going to be a 1-to-1. Let's take a look at the 8-to-3 one. It's on the 2-to-1 table. We have improved redoubt is 3 shifts, I think. I gotta look for that because there's no table right near here that helps that. So I gotta find it under the fortress rolls again, and I'll have to look it up every time, but I believe it's 3 columns. Yep. So I was at 2-to-1, 1, 2, 3. That's not good. Six. We each take 1. That's going to destroy the English force. Doesn't matter. This wasn't the one with artillery involved in it. Okay, this is a 1-to-1 with the same, 3 column shifts? Oh, and these turn to permanent hits, for what it's worth. Which should have caused that other one to be a significant battle. Oh well. So we're at 1-to-1. With 3 shifts drops us to the divorce table on the board, which isn't that bad actually. When you're facing little units like this, you can score kills with it. So, and that's a high roll. That's not going to score a kill. That does 2 hits on the French. 1 temporary, 1 permanent. That means the Allies hold it. Now, I think the French get a victory point for that significant victory before. I don't know. We're not going to charge it. The hell with it. I can't remember things. Anyway, the Brits do not have to retreat. Let's look at our retreat rules here. This is the end of the second round, if we can find them. As with everything, that's always a pain in the ass for me. Okay, it's not under retreat, it's under something else maybe. And the artillery rolls are in the middle of the combat rolls in a stupid place. Nope. This is victory, that's not what it is. There's somewhere else where it lists all the order of things that you have to do to figure out if you've won the battle or not. Anyway, here it is. It's in the sequence for the battle. But that's the only place. If the defending units remain and all attacking units have 0 strength points, not the case. If the attacker remains and the defenders have 0, the defenders retreat, and otherwise the attackers have to retreat. Since the attackers had, we may not want to send them here. That's a pretty well defended space. I think I'll send them all into here, which isn't as well defended and is easier to offend. And Brits are here. This unit is retreated, but I don't think it's off the board. I'm not sure. If you get an... Oh no, it was destroyed. Not retreated. It's not in the retreat box. So I'll toss that away. So this was not a significant battle either. The one where a unit got destroyed, I think was... It's hard to tell because it had a... Basically, it was a unit with a temporary loss which took a temporary loss. So it only took one permanent loss. So the other temporary losses it has, I don't think it converted to permanents for scoring the battle. I'm not sure. And I really don't care enough to look it up. It's a minor point. So now I do all kind of admin and that kind of crap for the French, which is really just tons and tons of die rolling. This wasn't so terrible playing it opposed because each person, especially with 5 people at the table, because each person had their own little command that they rolled their own dice for, and they had maybe 5 or 6 units to roll for. But now you can see it's getting pretty painful where there's units that have temporary losses on them everywhere. And on top of that, everything that has the attrition markers has to be rolled for as well. So that could be annoying as well. So you're not rolling for each unit, you're rolling for each space with units in it. So where there's a big pile of damaged stuff, you only roll once. And that's not as bad. I think I said that incorrectly. Anyway, we're kind of a static position. The French have forced their way into this location, which wasn't very well defended, but the English line across here is still okay for whatever that's worth. And of course, Toulon can't be taken as long as I defend it adequately. And in fact, these yellow fortifications, these are the right, those are the level 3 forts over there. Those also can't be taken if they're defended adequately. And they take less of a defense. They take just 1 infantry and 1 artillery. So those spaces are basically invulnerable if the defender chooses to defend them, which obviously he's not doing here, and he gave this one up. But that's okay. I can't defend this one if this line breaks. That's pretty much what my decision has been. I should have a readout for this space, though, and I don't have one for it. And that's going to be painful. And I may cheat and allow myself to build one there. I don't know. But losing this space may make that all somewhat irrelevant, although this one's a lot less important. This one gets me right into the 2 forts. With 1 invulnerable space, making this one more painful to go through is a big deal. That's like this space. This one keeps you from getting here. The other danger, though, is the victory point swing, which is there's victory points for this. So you kind of want to hold this space in order to, and not this one, because too many attackers can hit this and there just aren't enough allied units. But this one's a little easier for the French to subvert, and I found myself chasing this when I was playing opposed because this looked scarier and was harder to take, and this one's really the important one. But we ended up winning on basically and accepted we would win by victory points through bombarding the ships as opposed to by actually driving the Allies out of the rods at all. I think it was just too easy to win by victory points without taking either of the key forts before, and I'm pretty sure Andy's fixed that, so that you have a harder time as the French. It looked pretty guaranteed that French artillery could dominate the harbor without taking either of the key fortification locations. Anyway, that's just some reminiscing of random variety. Let's send this one up. And it looks like, it's going to kind of taper into something looking vaguely reasonable. Toulon is impossible. As long as the Allies, it's not against me as the Allies, but as long as the Allies pay attention and keep the minimum garrison in there, you can't take it. And they have the forces to defend it from the beginning of the game. All right, up it goes.